bad. Oh,
Hey, well, the St. Louis Cardinals just made significant decisions on some club options for the team going into the offseason. We've been keeping our eyes on some of these moves, knowing that a lot of them have significance in terms of what's going to be happening with the club in terms of cost-cutting measures. We're going to talk about all this and what we think the implications of the Cardinals' move so far this offseason, more on this episode of D on the Cards.
oh.
All right. Oh, can we hear me? We
Yep,
good?
it was a little rough, but I think we're okay.
Okay. Well, sorry guys. This might be a little bit of a weirder connection today. If you're on audio, bear with us a little bit too. Hopefully it improves throughout. I just got back from El Salvador this past week. So Andrew and Sandy have been holding down the fort. We had Thomas and Jeff Jones on Wednesday as well, which is super fun. But on Thursday, I believe it was, or Friday, we got the announcement that the Cardinals declined club options on Keenan Middleton, Lance Lynn, and Kyle Gibson. Andrew, you just had to waive or something for some reason cutting out. And I'll let you take the floor from there. But I mean, a lot of people have talked about this offseason. I think we've talked about it internally. I think Derek Gould's been really good about pointing out the Kyle Gibson option specifically is one that Cardinal fans should have been watching, as if the club declined Kyle Gibson's option, which is pretty reasonable price for a starting pitcher of his caliber and what he provides to the team. Again, I'm not trying to act like Kyle Gibson's some savior of a rotation there, but for $12 million, you probably has value at that price point. The fact that Cardinals declined that option along with Lance Lynn and Keenan Middleton's, I think says a lot about where payroll may be heading this coming season. I don't think Andrew, you or I expected the Cardinals to be major players in free agency, so that's not necessarily a shocker. But I think my main takeaway when I saw that, especially that Kyle Gibson's got declined, is okay. Like they're taking the easy routes of cutting payroll, right? Of letting the free agents walk, declining club options. But now it's like, okay, well, how far are they going to extend these payroll cuts? Are they going to do an Arenado, a Willson Contreras, a Sonny Gray? Where does Miles Michaelis and Steven Matz fit into this equation? We know Ryan Helsley probably is gone, but just at the top, Andrew, what was your response? How did you feel about them declining those club options? And what's kind of your pulse right now about where you think things are going to be heading, specifically the payroll?
Yeah, I think they declined Lynn Gibson and Middleton as a way to give them more flexibility. And I feel like that's going to be a word that we hear a lot this offseason, unfortunately. They're probably going to say that they're going to end up moving a lot of these guys for flexibility. And that's unfortunate, but I think it makes sense to decline Lynn's option. Middleton, you didn't really know what you were going to get out of him. You were watching his rehab progress throughout the season. I'm not sure how that went. I don't think they really talked much about that. But it's possible that he suffered a setback in his rehab, and that would make declining the option a lot easier, in my opinion. Kyle Gibson, I think, is the one that I think most were believed that he would be one of the candidates to be kept for next year's rotation. I think it makes a lot of sense that the Cardinals would not retain him for next year, because you have a lot of options that are going to be similar to him in terms of price point, in terms of what you're going to get out of him next year. You have guys that are cheaper, like Palante and McGreevy, are probably going to give you similar, if not better, production than Gibson. I think that both of their ceilings are higher. Miles Michaelis, obviously, is still under contract, and it's going to be a lot tougher to move him than it is to move Gibson. I also think that Gibson's better than Michaelis, but you're not going to get much different production between the two of them. Steven Matz could give you something similar, obviously not nearly as reliable as Kyle Gibson, but similar price point on that. But it also gives you an Eric Fetty. I always forget about Eric Fetty. He's going to probably be there as well, or as a trade chip. But that's already like 5 starters. If Sonny Gray wants to stay, that also another option. And you have guys in AAA that definitely need to get chances next year. So I think it makes a lot of sense. There is the risk. You do run the risk of declining Gibson's option, that you do get a bunch of guys starting games that are just not ready to be in the major leagues. Guys like Drew Rom or Dakota Hudson or Adam Wainwright, Jake Woodford in 2023 come to mind, where you just had that rotation spot that was just dead, and Gibson would have given you a higher floor with that. But I think you have enough guys in AAA, whether it's Robersa or Graceffo or McGreevy or any of those guys that could, one of them is bound to emerge and be that last starter for you, that I think it's okay to let Gibson walk. Also, there's a chance that you bring him back. I don't think that they're really going to look to do that. But there's also I don't think Gibson's going to command a lesser deal. I think he definitely had one of the better seasons of his career in St. Louis last year. Always giving you the quality innings that you need. Every once in a while it would have a bad start, but still give you the length that you needed out of that rotation spot. I don't know if you want to go that route. I know there's other higher end options that maybe like low floor, high ceiling options like Walker Buehler. Obviously, Walker Buehler's, I think, off the table for a 1-year deal now after what he did in the World Series and the postseason, which, hey, the Dodgers won the World Series since the last time we recorded. So that was fun. But yeah, I don't know if there's other guys like Buehler before the World Series that you would have looked to as somebody that could have filled that kind of role. Maybe Max Scherzer on a 1-year deal. He really wants to be here, right, Mo? Like at least he did at one point. So I don't know if he would consider that. There's a lot of options that they can go that are similar to Gibson as well. Out on the free agent market, they're probably not names that are going to get Cardinals fans excited. There's probably going to be names that get Cardinals fans be like, "Oh, Mo's bringing in another guy." Like there's for every Kyle Gibson, there's a Lance Lynn and a Max Scherzer and a Verlander or somebody who's just at the end of their prime, and it's like not really going to give you the exciting name that you really want. The Cardinals aren't going to be shopping in the Max Fried bin of the aisle. So there you go.
Yeah, and I also think we just gotta have different expectations, right? Like I feel like signing a Lance Lynn, Kyle Gibson last offseason makes sense why it was so deflating and so missed the mark and just didn't really excite people because the rhetoric was, hey, we're gonna turn this ship around, we're gonna make the playoffs again. And Kyle Gibson and Lance Lynn, even though again I made the argument, okay, let's backtrack. Beginning off season, I was not like, hey, go out and sign Kyle Gibson and Lance Lynn and your problems will be solved. It was like, hey, go get Tyler Glass now, go get Yamamoto. It was some Sonny Gray. They did Sonny Gray, they didn't do the other guys. But then once they signed him, I was like, okay, I can see the plan here. But you had to squint, right? Like we had to squint and be like, okay, if the offense is good and the rotation's good enough, then you could make the playoffs. They're not trying to do that, right? Like you don't need Max Fried this offseason because you're not trying to make the playoffs. And if you're the opinion that it's not acceptable in St. Louis to not make the playoffs and not be trying to do that, I get it. But I think for most people, you're just gonna be really frustrated and disappointed unless you reset your expectations for this offseason specifically. And also too, I feel like there's a plan right now. I think hopefully fans appreciate that in a different way. Where I know Mo's still in charge right now, and I know that it's not fully bloom show yet. I know that there's a lot to be proven, but this isn't the same patchwork job that they're doing last year, right? They think there's significant issues under the hood. They're going to try to fix those. And so if you think Max Fried, Corbin Burns are happening, you're out of your mind. If you think Michael Walker is happening, oh, well, he just re-signed the Royals. They're just not happening, right? Those things aren't happening. Walker's not happening. I could see them bring back Kyle Gibson later this offseason if they feel like we could use you. There's a market for you. I get to get rid of Sonny Gray. They'll probably want one more starter. But at this point, I think it's more about who the Cardinals are getting.
Oh, I think we lost Josh. Well, okay, just let us know if his audio. Point. Oh, uh-oh. I don't want to. Yeah, okay. I think we lost Josh for a second. We'll check to see. Oh, he's bouncing back in. Oh dear.
Oh man. Sorry guys. This might not be great for a little bit, but can you hear me now?
Yeah, you're good.
Well, we might have a couple of those this episode. I apologize, guys. But yeah, so I think where I was at with that, if you weren't really catching my drift as I'm cutting out, is, yeah, I think you're not really going to be looking for big ticket items, what they could be adding this offseason. But again, I think you could see a Kyle Gibson back. I'm not dead. Lance Lynn back, maybe. But I think some of that will, I think you hit the nail on the head, Andrew. It's what John Mozeliak said. They're looking for flexibility right now, right? If you free up all this money off the books, in theory, they haven't ruled out bringing back Paul Goldschmidt yet. I doubt it, and I don't want it to happen, but like they're open to doing some of those things. But at this point, I think they're trying to create as many options as possible so that if they do move a Nolan Arenado, if they do move with Sonny Gray, if they do move Willson Contreras, they can bring in the right pieces to replace that on the roster. So I think my mind at this point is moving toward what are they going to do in the trade market? Andrew, where is your mind really moving with all this?
Yeah, I think they're going to be one of the bigger sellers in this trade market, unfortunately. They have a bunch of pieces that I think are really intriguing that other teams could be interested in.
Did you see that? Or I was going to say, did you see the MLB trade rumors article?
Yeah, I did. So Ryan Helsley, I feel like, is one of the key candidates to get moved this offseason, just out of all players in general. I think definitely he is an option that a lot of teams that are looking for bullpen help could get, right? Like you see in the World Series that the Dodgers didn't have a nice starting rotation, but they got length out of some of their relievers that they've been saving all year, like Blake Trinan and Michael Kopech were guys that they really heavily relied on. And that may be some of the model going forward, is maybe not having as many starting pitchers that'll give you length, but a lot of guys in your bullpen that you can go to in high leverage. There's a lot of guys, or a lot of teams, I think, that could use Ryan Helsley and would give up quite a premium price for that. You saw what the Padres gave up for half a season of Tanner Scott, and other teams would give that up for a whole season of Ryan Helsley. Teams like the Orioles probably going to need a lot of pitching help. I think we've linked Helsley to them for a long time. But in his final year of his contract, I don't want to make him a starter. I think that's ridiculous. But there are people that think that he should be made into a starter, and they might be
people with 200 IQ would.
Yeah, right. But I don't think it's really worth keeping him around to like just experiment with him like that. You can get so much more for him in the trade market. You can get guys that are major league ready, that could be ready to contribute as soon as next year or 2026. And I think that's definitely somebody that you could look to move off. Nolan Arenado, obviously somebody that could be traded. His performance has obviously declined. I don't think he's worth the contract that he's being paid anymore. So the Cardinals might have to eat a little bit of that if they want to get any amount of return back. But I think it could still be worth it to try out other options at third base, right? Like Thomas DeJC could be a guy that could be at third base for a long time in the future if you give him a chance this season. Obviously, Nolan Gorman, Jordan Walker are probably not going to move back to third base, even though other people think that they might. Yeah, that would be. But if you did that, Arenado would just win NLCS MVP next year, and Tommy Edman would be hurt. I don't make the rules.
Hey, one of the nice things is that they're going to trade. They're probably going to trade like 5 or 6 players, so it's not possible for them all to win ALCS and LCS MVP. So they might trade away both the ALCS and NLCS MVP, but they can't. Not everyone can be that.
Well, if the Yankees had choked in the ALCS instead of the World Series, then Lane Thomas would have been the ALCS MVP. So there you go.
It's true. It's true. Yeah, so I've seen a couple questions in here about their payroll sitting around 100 million. I don't think it's that low yet. It looks like Fangraphs has them estimated at 150 million for 2025 as things currently stand, because you're gonna have arbitration raises in there, and you also have to field a minimum roster. So like there's gonna be some additions there. But it definitely could drop more with Nolan Arenado, Sonny Gray, Miles Michaelis, Willson Contreras, Steven Matz, Eric Fetty, Ryan Helsley. Like those are all movable pieces. To varying extents that could be moved.
Is Miles Michaelis really movable?
Well, so that's the thing I want to get into with you, Andrew. I want to present something to you that I'm going to write about here in a minute and put out there into the universe, but let's talk about it on here first. I think it's a interesting, in my opinion, I think it makes way more sense at this point. You know how it feels like a lot of us have been like, hey, they should trade Miles Michaelis and Steven Matz. I'm of the exact opposite opinion now. Why would you trade Miles Michaelis and Steven Matz? I'd be trading the guys who have actual value. Like my number 1 trade candidate right now is Ryan Helsley. My number 2 trade candidate is Eric Fetty, because a guy like that, you're not eating any salary. You're freeing up all $7.5 million, and you're going to get something in return for him. I want to trade the guys I'm going to get something in return for, not the guys that have to eat money and get nothing in return for. I'm not saying you can't trade Miles Michaelis or Steven Matz, but if I'm holding on to certain guys, it's the guys that have no value and let them die on my roster and trade away the guys that do have value, right? Like, I think keeping Eric Fetty right now would be a huge waste because, again, you're not going to get like a blockbuster in return for Eric Fetty, but Chris Bassett in 2022, very similar comp.
I mean, you might if you're the Dodgers.
Oh, yeah, that's true. But like you're like you can probably get an organization's like number 5, number 6 prospect for him. And I think that like that's a valuable piece to a rebuilding farm system. Ryan Helsley, again, you can get really good value for. I personally think Willson Contreras and Sonny Gray can both get you a lot of value. I was kind of interested. I don't know if you read the MLBTR article, but they kind of actually gave Arenado more value than I think we have. I would still temper it a little bit because he basically is going to, I mean, they all can control their destinations outside of Helsley and Fetty, but like, I think it's pretty obvious that Goldschmidt or Arenado's going to either the Dodgers or like the Phillies maybe, but like probably the Dodgers.
Or
And
the
so
Yankees,
like,
who made
yeah,
some really bad plays at third base
that's
in the
true.
World Series.
That's true. So like I just don't, it's gonna be hard to get a lot for him when he can kind of really dictate that. But like Sonny Gray's so valuable, and I don't think Sonny Gray is gonna force himself out of St. Louis. I think he'll be in a world, he could be in a world where he's open to leaving, but he's willing to stay. I think Arenado and Cardinals both want to part ways. So I think that will happen. Sonny Gray, I think you shop him, and if you get the right deal, someone pays you the right value, you trade him away. And if not, I keep him to be a shepherd for this young staff, to show them how to be a great pitcher and to be part of the 2026 roster. Willson Contreras, same thing. If someone gives me the value that I think Willson Contreras is worth, I trade him. If not, turn him to a first baseman, let him be the catcher, DH, whatever. Use that bat for the future. But like Fetty, there's no point keeping him. Ryan Helsley, you don't keep that guy. But then like Steven Matz and Miles Michaelis, and this is where I want to see if you disagree or agree with me. And if you're in the comments right now, let me know too. I don't think it makes sense to move those guys because you don't get anything in return. Does that thought process make sense to you?
Yeah, I understand getting value back, and I understand that they're going to be cutting costs this offseason. But I don't see the reason. I mean, I understand if you cut Gray and you cut Arenado and you cut Contreras, you're saving a lot of money. And I don't know, like, you could dump our Michaelis and Matz, eat some of that money, get some return back, and go out and sign guys that have more upside. Right? Like, I'm sure, like, if you had half of Miles Michaelis' contract to work with, you could go out on the free agent market and probably sign someone that's way better. Like, that's probably just how it's going to happen. And if you let Chaim Bloom put in input on some of those decisions, like, you could get somebody that ends up being really good. Look at what the Royals paid for like Seth Lugo. Like, it's probably half of what Miles Michaelis got. And like, even like guys like Shota Imanaga, yeah, he was good this year, right? He got like 16 million a year, 18 million a year from the Cubs.
Mm-hmm.
And Miles Michaelis is making like what, 22, 23, 24 million. I think it's definitely like possible to go out there and make your team better by trading all of those guys and then going out and getting and replacing them with guys that have more upside. And that's why I hesitate with the Gibson trade, because I think you're making the possibility that your team has another 2023 a lot higher, right? Because Gibson and Lynn provided the insurance that the Cardinals needed this season to not repeat that. Obviously, you had guys like McGreevy and Palante sort of pan out, but if they didn't, and they didn't have Lynn and Gibson, it would have been really bad to see what the rotation would have turned into. It would have just been a repeat of last year.
Yeah.
But I think this team can compete in 2025. Maybe not like be a favorite to make the playoffs like they were last couple of years, but or maybe not be the expectation. But I think there's a world where they build a team with a high enough upside that they can make the playoffs. And I think by stripping all of those pieces away and just leaving Michaelis and Matz, you're not really letting that happen.
Yeah, I think maybe more so the way I guess I would flesh it out fully is I'm shopping those guys first. And if I'm not getting what I want, then I'm fine to shop Michaelis and Matz too, because you do want to free some money. And sure, I'm open to the idea of bringing in a higher upside guy than those guys. But you're also like Michaelis, you're going to have to eat 10 million of that deal, maybe something like that. And so like, it's not as simple as, oh, you move the 18 and you bring on a different 18. Like, you have to eat money there too. So like, let's say the Cardinals signed a $16 million a year pitcher, but they eat $10 million of Miles Michaelis's deal. Now they're paying $28 million or $26 million for this rotation spot instead of $18 million that they're paying for Michaelis. And so,
yeah, but there's always those guys that are out there, right? Like there's always those guys that are out there that you can go and find. Like the White Sox found Eric Fetty, and like they were terrible.
Yeah. $7.5 million investment. Go for that. Like get in that tier all day. I guess so. Part of it too is like
James Nail reunion. He's people are saying he might be the next Eric Fetty, and you know I saw that coming from a mile away when he won Player of the Month in April in the KBO. But anyway, imagine if they did that.
Yeah, I don't know. Is my connection good right now?
Yeah, I think it's been good for the last
Okay. Yeah. We're gonna do some ad reads real quick, and then I'm gonna give you some of my thoughts here. But I really want to thank Smith Agri-Service. They're family-owned independent realtor providing farmers in Missouri, Illinois, and Iowa with competitive pricing on Corteva, BASF generic brand crop protection products, and Burvent corn and soybean seed. You can scan the QR code that's been on our screen this whole episode to text them right away, or you can text them at 202-988-1106 or email at smithag@irtc.net. We're really appreciative of Smith Agri-Service Incorporated for their sponsorship of the podcast, and please check them out if you're interested in their services. And we also always want to thank 3 and 4 Sports Cards and Collectibles. They're located at 9640 Olive Boulevard in Olivet. Open 10 to 5 Monday through Friday and 9 to 4 on Saturdays. They buy, sell, and trade all sports cards and Pokemon cards, such as World Series winner Shohei Ohtani. They have the newest selection of packs, boxes, and single cards of local players and stars from around the league. So go check out 314. Again, many of you already checked them out. So spam in the comments if you've been to 314. Let them know every time we go. I might have my own cards here soon that Andrew's able to help me snag, and one of them's a football player. You all know who it is if you listen to the podcast. Really appreciate the support of both 314 and Smith Agri-Service. So here's one of the things I think we got to think about too. So let's say they move Sonny Gray and Eric Fetty. Well, who's your rotation? Okay, so you've got Palante, and then young guys. It's like none of them have made any starts except McGreevy, who's made a few. It's like McGreevy, Liberatore, or Thompson, or Graceffo, or Klopfenstein, or Semper Bursa. Like, I want to, most of those guys at this point, you throw them in the major leagues, and if it doesn't work out, it's not a huge deal. But you don't want to force Quinn Matthews in there. You don't want to force Tink Hence in there until they're ready, right? You're not we've burned through 5 options. You got to use Tink now, even though he's struggling in AAA. That's where I think it's not a bad idea to keep around some of those veteran arms if you can't find the right deal for them. If someone comes knocking on the Cardinals' doors, hey, we'll take Miles Michaelis off your hands. I'm not saying, we got to keep him. But I'm not prioritizing getting rid of his contract or Matt's contract at this point when you can get real value for Fetty or Gray. Again, Fetty's one I think you have to trade. It does not make sense to keep. Gray you could keep if you don't get the right deal. Or if Gray's hey, I want to stay in St. Louis. I want to be part of the winning. I want to shepherd the young guys. I think it's worth it. You keep him. But I'm talking about let's say they do accomplish moving Sonny Gray to the Braves and Eric Fetty to the Dodgers or whoever. It's you got to have some arms in the rotation. And we see this every year. I think we sometimes think they have 5 guys. It's I know Mo gets mean for the we have 6 starters thing, but you legit need 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 starting pitchers because you just have guys who get injured, right? And so if they start their spring training rotation and it's Palante, McGreevy, Robersa, Graceffo, that's going to be a nightmare, a train wreck. But to your point, they could always bring back Kyle Gibson, or they could sign the James Nail of the world, or they could go get a different guy out there. But again, I just think there's a lot of moving parts right now. I kind of doubt they can move everyone. So I think having Michaelis and Matts there as guys who could throw innings for you is helpful rather than they have to move that money and that stuff, because it actually doesn't help you long term. Besides moving the money, right? You're not going to get something significant from Michaelis or Matts that's worthwhile. And yeah, I agree with you, Andrew. I'd like to compete in 2025, but if they're going to really reset, I want them to take it seriously, and I want them getting value for some of these guys so that in 2026 and beyond, they're in a good spot. The same with Willson Contreras. I would love to keep him, but if you have the right value on the table, you have Herrera and Pedro Pages for the future. And as much as I believe in Willson Contreras, I don't know how good of a hitter he'll be in 2026. and 2025 is not the year, I'm maximizing his value now and not like just hoping he's a part of my core in 2026, 2027. In the same way that I would with Jordan Walker or Lars Nootbaar or Nolan Gorman or those guys that are young that I'm like hoping to send, or Mason Wynn, right? So I think to me, Helsley, Fetty, you have to trade. Gray, Arenado, Contreras, you need to shop, but you don't have to trade any of them besides maybe Arenado. But then like Matz and Michaelis, unless you get blown away by an offer, and by blown away, I mean they want to take most of the money or they offer you anything decent, then like I don't think it makes sense to move them. But I also think flexibility is true, that they're probably trying to move a lot of this money off the books so that their options are open, like you said, Andrew, where it's like, okay, someone does come in and take Sonny Gray and Nolan Arenado. Well, they just freed up a ton of money. I don't think they need that much money freed up. So then they can be creative and go, oh, let's go get that low risk, high upside arm that you're talking about, Andrew, that like doesn't fit within their budget right now, but it fits within their budget if they move these big deals off the books. But like a Matz, he's not gonna get you anything at the deadline really significant. But like if he makes starts and is like a high 3s ERA, low 4s ERA for the season for you next year, you can flip him for like a 12th ranked prospect in someone's system. And so I don't think you have to eat the money on that right now. Even a Michaelis, like he could be like the John Lester of the Cardinals next year, right? Where it's like, oh, it gets you the equivalent of the Lane Thomas. I don't know. I just think it's like, I don't think you have to shave that money with all the other money that's coming off the books right now, especially because we're not talking about like they need to free up all this money to go sign Juan Soto or Max Fried, because we know they're not doing those things.
I mean, I was told that all they had to give up for one. So anyway,
not again.
Yeah, no. I think it makes sense to move off of those guys for now. I don't know what they're going to get for any of them. Obviously, we're going to have to see what happens this offseason. Nothing's really happened yet, other than they traded Jorge Soler for like Griffin Canning or whatever happened the other day. But I think, yeah, I'm not sure.
Like MLBTR had Helsley is the number 2 trade candidate. Fetty is number 3 out of all their players, which again, they didn't just say like the highest valued or most likely. It was a combination of the two. So it's like most likely to be traded with the most value. Arenado was 10, Gray was 11, Contreras was 12. The 2 on the list that I have no idea why they made it on there really, and I wonder what you think, is Nolan Gorman and Brendan Donovan. There is zero chance Brendan Donovan's getting traded. I'm just telling you that. That's not happening. It's not even just because I love him. It just makes no sense unless they can package him for a young starter. Like, it's not happening. And why would you sell low on Nolan Gorman right now? If you're resetting in 2025, it's the perfect year to unleash him and just see what he is. There's no point in selling low on him. Do you disagree with me on that?
No, I didn't even get that far on the list. But
it was like, when I saw them, I was like, why? It didn't make sense.
I don't know. I don't think that's going to happen. I don't think the Cardinals are going to make really buyer moves this offseason. They might go out and get guys that they can flip at the trade deadline if they're bad, or guys that they can they might make like Tigers type moves this year. I know the Tigers are trying to compete, but they didn't really go out and sign any guys that were like long-term deals. Like they signed Jack Flaherty, who they ended up trading, but then ended up working out for them. They made the playoffs anyway. But yeah, are there any like, I don't know, are there any like high upside guys that you think that they could go after, or is it still too early? I know Walker Buehler is probably off the table.
We talked about some guys recently on one of the episodes, and I mean, there's trade candidates on the pitching side of things. There's not a lot of bats in free agency off the top of my head. That side, like a veteran that you just hope has a good year. Like I think Shane Bieber's probably off the table now too. Like those guys he always is probably off the table. Like Walker Buehler was like my one where it's like that would make sense, but I just don't see it happening. Like I mean, you could. Gosh, there's the Braves guy, Mike Soroka, like something like that could make sense to me, where it's like, okay, we've seen him be really good in the past, and he started for the White Sox last year some and wasn't that good, but like if the Cardinals think they can change some things in his game and his pitching repertoire and turn him into something, I think it makes sense to go after something like that. You talk about the guy from the Marlins they just picked up, blanking on his name right now. It's going to come to me in a second here. Roderick Munoz, where it's like, he probably is a bullpen arm for them next year. And also that's even if he makes the roster, it's like, I don't get why people are super mad about it. It's not like anyone needs to be super happy about it, but it's like, well, I mean, What did you expect? They're going to sign Juan Soto right now? Like,
Yeah. I mean,
40
you
man.
can't even sign those guys. Like, it's just waiver claims and
Yeah.
trades right now.
And like, also, like, I'm sick of, like, they've done the Rivas type claims. It's like, those are whatever. But like a Munoz, it's like, this guy is like really nasty stuff. He's like Riley O'Brien. He just has no idea where it's going. And so it's like, hey, if you get him to command it a little bit, that's a valuable piece. And if it doesn't work out, whatever, you cut him. Like, those are the kinds of moves where I'm like, yeah, go after those kind of things right now. It makes a ton of sense.
Yeah, the Brewers just put Colin Ray on waivers, and he was actually pretty good for them this year. But I don't like him.
Go get Colin Ray. No, just kidding.
Good. He's not good.
Hey, shout out to Michael Wacha today getting the bag from Kansas City. So Michael Wacha is one of my favorite Cardinals of all time. So I wish a reunion was possible, but not going to happen there. So yeah, this next week or two is gonna be really interesting when the GM meetings come around. That's really when I think the market's gonna start taking a little bit of shape, and we're gonna start to know, like, are there real suitors for Gray, Helsley? Well, Helsley there will be for sure, but are there real suitors for Gray, Arenado, Contreras? Are they actually gonna get moved? And we'll start to hopefully hear in the near future too, like which of those guys wants to be moved, which ones are open to be moved, and which ones don't want to be moved. As of right now, we're all just speculating with all of that. But I honestly, Andrew, I don't know if you agree or not, but this might be the most interesting offseason as things currently stand. Last year was kind of interesting because you knew, like, they're going to add a lot of starters and you were hopeful it could be bigger deals. But like, this is the one where I'm like, there's a lot of things that could happen. And like, we could get the spring training next year, and they've added some pretty significant prospects to this farm system. Youth movement going on. They're resetting the tables for next year. I'm pretty excited about what could be happening here. I've been really excited by the front office moves that they've made. What about you? Like, are you intrigued by what this is happening this offseason, or are you kind of like, because I think some people are going to check out. I'm like leaning in right now. This is really interesting.
Yeah, it's just that I know they're not going to get better this offseason. And I think that's what, or they're not for next year.
Yeah, I was going to say, what you mean? Because actually, I think
their roster isn't going to get better.
Yeah,
and they're probably not going to have a better record than they did this year. I mean, they might, but I feel like the chances of that happening are pretty low. I'm sure you guys will talk yourself into that at some point this offseason, but I don't think I will.
Well, I mean, please call me on it, but like, unless something crazy happens, we have to just be there's a wide range of outcomes. They could win 82 games, they could win 70 games. That's where they're at right now.
They might lose 100 games next year, depending on how this roster goes. Like, I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, if it really dips, but like that feels like in the very unlikely, as so does the high 80s wins seems very unlikely. But like between 70 and 82, I give all like 20, like, sure, whatever, any of that can happen.
Yeah, I mean, I guess the philosophy has always been winning, get in the playoffs and make a run. But this year particularly made it feel like that is not really that possible. But I guess it's just the year that the two the best teams in each league made the World Series. But I don't see this team really doing anything next year at all. So I'm not really excited on that front. I'm more excited for 26. Hopefully they bring in interesting prospects for the guys that they do. I also I think it'll be interesting to see who they end up moving on from. I think the ownership is going to be pretty hesitant to move on from a guy like Arenado because they don't really have any marketable players other than him right now. And I think that's something that they really value having. So I don't know if the ownership is going to step in and be like, hey, you guys can't trade him, even though we're trying to reset.
Yeah,
I'm a little bit nervous for that, and I think a lot of Cardinal fans right now are just kind of bracing for impact and being like, "Oh, our team's going to be terrible next year."
Yeah,
and see what happens.
Well, so here's like, so Bill says 60, 70 wins, which I'm not going to say. I mean, that's in the that those are possible, but like the 60s range and like even low 70, like here's the counter is like, okay, Goldschmidt's gone, not a huge deal. Like a lot of the guys that are losing is not a huge deal. If you lose Contreras and Gray, but Contreras missed half the year. And you lose Arenado, it's like, yeah, that he is a valuable player, but like it's not huge. But like if you lose all these guys, a lot of them weren't super impactful winning this year outside of Gray and Contreras. And then if you get those, like you get some rebound seasons from a new Bar Gorman, Walker, The young rotation looks decent. I know losing Helsley means a lot, but like that's where I don't like. You're gonna lose some things, but you're also gonna gain some things, and so that's where I don't think it'd be a huge drop off from where they already were. Does that make sense?
It
But young
does.
players could fall off too. Like we just saw this past year, all of them struggled.
Yeah, it's rough. I actually really wonder what would have happened this season if Tommy Edman and Willson Contreras were healthy the entire year. I think they would have made the playoffs, but yeah,
Potentially, yeah.
press the button if you want. But
Which will also like, I don't know if you disagree. I think if they made the playoffs, we're still in the same spot.
are they? They're going to trade all these guys?
I think they're still resetting.
I mean, imagine
maybe
if they
it's
got
not
that
as
last
aggressive.
spot that the Mets did. I think they would have beat the Brewers. The Brewers look terrible. The Phillies look really bad. Do they get stomped by the Dodgers? Yeah, probably. But who doesn't really?
But like
every team did.
Mo talked about it a little bit. I think he was in the scrum after the end of season press conference where he kind of was like, someone asked him about like the season as a fail. I can't remember what the context was, but he basically was like, this was, even if we like didn't really matter how the season finished, we kind of were deciding to go this direction. Cause I think they saw like what we're doing right now is like a 1-year fix, but like the things Bloom has told us, like this is the things that need fixed right now. And we're going to be continuously like the things that fans have been frustrated by every offseason. It feels like there's patching holes. That's going to continue until they take this reset. And so I think they were kind of like, hey, we're going to try and make the playoffs here. And if it doesn't work, then we're resetting. If we make the playoffs, we're resetting. Maybe it's not as aggressive, right? Like maybe Gray and Contreras don't want out, but I think they're still cutting payroll, right? Like I think they're still doing significant player development investments, but I don't think this offseason's all that much different if they made the playoffs, but we'll never know. So
yeah, I hope just fans stick around because like this could be really bad for the organization going forward. I think if they end up being one of the lower payroll teams next year and they struggle even more, they're going to lose even more of their fan base that they already had. And they need to be back in 2026. Their payroll needs to be back close to like the 200s in 2026. Otherwise, it's like they're going to damage their brand for a lot longer than that.
Yeah, potentially for sure. I guess again, I'm never going to tell fans how to feel about stuff on that, right? Like I don't think that's a great business to get into. People get pretty frustrated about that kind of stuff. I personally, and I hope people start to feel this too, is I'm more excited about the Cardinals now than I have been in a long time. Even last offseason.
Then like 22.
Well, like the direction of the card. I guess, yeah, 22 it was big. But like that quickly wore off because like they came off 2021 where things are kind of disappointing. But then the prospects came up. You had Walker coming for 2023. Like, I guess so. What I thought we were going to feel in 2023 is what probably the most excited I felt like about this team going into 2023. But then it all kind of fell off again. But like the long-term future of this organization, I really like that we're going to see the young players play. And I really like the pitching that's coming up. And I think it's exciting. What was the last pitcher you were excited to see make a debut in St. Louis? Like Quinn Matthews, this is going to be awesome. Tink Hence, excited. Doesn't mean they're going to work out. Tekoa Roby, Cooper Jerpy, like they've got pitchers coming up. The young bats disappointed. They did. But like, I don't think all of Jordan Walker, Logan Newbar, Nolan Gorman are going to just be bad. And Ivan Herrera is exciting. Alec Burleson, JJ Weatherall. Like, I'm excited about where things going. And if they build this right, and I think they've got the right guy to do it in Hein Bloom, they can build a strong young core, and then they go out and they make those big moves to supplement the roster, and you go win a championship, or you start being an NL contender in a way that they aren't right now, where they kind of had to go trade for Nolan Arenado and Willson, and they had to trade for Nolan Arenado and Paul Goldschmidt because they couldn't develop their own versions of that. And then they tried to have those young guys supplement them, but none of them were ready. And so it just kept falling flat. And I think they're doing it in reverse this time, where they're building up a young core. And then when they're ready to go get those star players, it's when they're ready to compete. But like you said too, like they make the playoffs this year, then maybe win a playoff series or two and things feel different. If Ryan Helsley doesn't hurt his finger in the last regular season game of 2022, that team maybe goes on to make the World Series. Like with Albert Pujols, if they trade for Juan, I mean, there's so many like what if moments where like things could have been different, and it just isn't. But like I'm excited about the future, and I get that people are frustrated by ownership. Here's one thing I think I'm reading it different than other people are. I have not heard ownership yet or John Mozeliak say, and again, this is how you're interpreting it. That's okay. I'm just saying this is how I'm interpreting it. I've not heard them say we have to trade away all the expensive pieces to improve the development process. I hear it as like the club options they're declining, letting Goldschmidt go, letting all these guys go. That is plenty enough money to do that. I do think the TV revenue is important here, that we're not taking that into. I think it's $75 million they might be missing out on this year. That might require them to cut some more payroll. But I think overall, moving these big contracts is more about resetting the farm system and resetting the club for 2025 and 2026 and getting the young players playing time than is that they have to trade away all these guys because they don't have enough money anymore. But do you disagree on that? Do you feel like it's more of like, hey, we're trading Contreras and Gray because we don't have enough money?
I don't know. I think I need to hear more from what ownership has to say about that.
Yeah.
I'm very frustrated that this has to happen. I think the ownership can afford to eat the money that they're losing from the TV deals and whatnot, because they're still going to have a TV deal next year. I think in some aspect they might not get nearly as much, but I think they owe it to the fans who have supported them for so long to pay it forward into their roster a little bit more. They definitely can't afford to keep Arenado and Gray and Contreras and whoever and still do all these revamps. Like, it might not come as quickly, right? Like, it might not come as quickly with the development of young talent, but you already have so much young talent in your farm system that could be really good. And Chaim Bloom could definitely escalate that even further by giving his input and using, like, developing a pitching lab and any of the stuff that they need to do to catch up with modern baseball analytics. But there definitely is a world where they can contend in 2025 and also revamp their farm system. They're just not willing to do it. And whether or not it's because, like, they're going to lose money or whatnot. And by the way, the DeWitts are like the 7th richest owner in baseball. They're going to be fine either way. But
Yeah.
I think there is a world where they can contend and compete in 2025 and revamp their system under Bloom. They're just not going to do it, and that's what really frustrates me and a lot of other fans.
What if we talk about it like this, though? They could compete and revamp the farm system, or they can prioritize the young playing time of their playing time of their young players, which is more future oriented, which helps you in the future more than it does now, while also revamping player development so that you're doubling down on 2026, using time in 2025 to do it, rather than like patching in some veterans to try and make the playoffs, but also still not getting enough playing time for Jordan Walker or not getting enough starts for Michael McGreevy. I would rather them, like, again, 1 year of this is okay. If they're like 2026 comes around, they're like, oh, well, we need to reset another year. It's like, okay, you lost me.
But well, there's a world where they can, like, I don't know, trade Nolan Gorman for some young pitching, maybe sell low on him, which is frustrating but fine. But then you sign Teoscar Hernandez, and you put Jordan Walker in the outfield, Brendan Donovan second base, and you can bat Jordan Walker ninth. He can be a black hole. That's fine, but you can also let him play every day, right? There's a world where you can do something like that.
Yeah, I guess so. I just don't like that. Like, I mean, you start with the Nolan Gorman side of it. It's like, what do you get for Nolan Gorman? Like, what's he on pitching? It's probably unproven AA pitching. Like, and I don't like at this point, I'd rather bet on the 40 home runs in a reset year. Like, you're not getting Bryce Miller or Brian Wu for him. Like, maybe if you packaged him and Brendan Donovan for something like that, you could. But think about it. Like, do you like the Atlanta Braves right now?
Do I like?
Do you think? Yeah. Do you think they're a pretty one of the top organizations in baseball? 2014 they won, or 2013 they won 96 games. Then they entered a little bit of a reset. Now this is longer than what the Cardinals need to do, but they won 79 games in 2014, 67, 68, and 72 in consecutive years.
Playing their young guys. Their young guys hadn't come up yet.
But they were turning the team over to Freddie Freeman, and they were moving some of these guys off.
They had Freddie Freeman had broken out before then.
Yeah, but he was like the one guy they kept on the roster from that core, which is kind of like the Cardinals are doing, right? They're keeping Newt Bars, Jordan Walkers, Nolan Gorman, Mason Wynn. Okay, I'm not saying he's Freddie Freeman. I'm saying that's
not the same caliber of player.
Okay, I'm not talking about the caliber of player. I'm talking about they had a part of a young core, and they kept that part of the young core, but they got rid of the aging veterans, and they let the young core keep playing until the new emerging young core of the Ronald Acuñas and the Austin Rileys and the Max Frieds all surrounded them. And then they went out, spent, and made big trades too. And now they're a consistent powerhouse. I'm not saying people, I'm of a different opinion, but I get other people have that opinion. I like the idea of trying to make this thing really good in 2026 and beyond.
Yeah, no, I get that.
Than to like force 2025 to happen at the same time. If it's a 1 year dip, I think it's okay. But if it's more than that, then yes, I will also be frustrated because the Cardinals don't need to do something like that. But we'll have all offseason debate it. And also, like, we could be here in February and Nolan Arenado, Sonny Gray, and Willson Contreras are still here. So, like, there's a lot of things that can happen still. We'll see what happens. I know everyone has different opinions, which is also why I think it's going to be a really interesting offseason because you can make a lot of cases in a lot of directions, and we're all going to be like, we'll see what happens. So, Andrew, anything else on the way out?
Yeah, I guess we'll see what happens with some of these free agents. I guess they already aren't giving Goldie a qualifying offer. Is that?
Yeah, there's no way.
Okay.
I don't think it's been I don't think it's official yet, but like, there's no way.
Gold Gloves come out tonight. Hopefully, Mason Wynn wins one.
Who do you think? So Goldie, no. Arenado, Donovan, and Wynn are up. I think Donovan will win.
I think Donovan might win. I don't think Arenado is going to win. I think Matt Chapman's got him beat. But
yeah. Do you think Wynn will win?
I think Wynn would win, but I don't know. Shortstop's competitive position. Sione should have won center field, but he's not going to.
Yeah. I'm gonna say, and let us know your predictions below. I'm gonna say Brendan Donovan wins. I'm gonna say Wynn and Arenado don't, even though I would love for Wynn to win, but Wynn to win.
Yep.
Anyways, yeah, we'll be back on Wednesday as always. Really appreciate the support again. Awesome sport on a Sunday afternoon, beginning of the offseason. I know it's not as exciting. We're not sitting here talking about, are they going to trade for Glass now? Are they going to sign Arenado, Yamamoto? It's like, well, they're going to be trading guys. But
yeah,
we love this community. We really appreciate Cardinal fans for tuning in. Like and subscribe. This is your first time. Helps the channel a ton, and we really appreciate it. And we're really looking forward to what this offseason has to bring. So we'll catch you all next time on Dealing the Cards. Peace.
Thanks.